Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Calicut, and welcome to a special post-wrestling Raw edition of the CT Sports Report. Rarely am I joined by my partner in crime during a wrestling-type show, but ladies and gentlemen, he is here today. Mr. Cody Teague, how are you, sir?
I am here. I am tired from last night, Chris. A little hoarse, but I am here and alive. Excited for another show, especially after seeing something live and you getting us so much publicity last night. It's going to be a great show.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my beautiful outfit you may have seen last night live on the USA Network. Wrestling 101, you must live out your gimmick. Therefore, I am here tonight with this wonderful outfit on. I do not use the term cosplay because I am not that big of a dork. I probably just made a lot of people mad at me right there, but that's okay. That's okay.
It's gonna be better than when we get that fine for you having that logo on your shirt.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of.
Oh man!
You're so right about that. Jeez,
no one
think
watches
about that.
Fine.
Anyways, thanks for joining us, everybody. We were in Greensboro last night, live for Monday Night Raw, and also the Superstars taping that took place before that. If you have not seen our links earlier in the day and last night, huge, and I do mean huge, thank you to the folks over at Wrestling Inc., Raj Giri, Sean Rossap, and the gang over there. They were fantastic to us last night, used a lot of our news tips and spoilers, and we sort of tipped them off to a couple of segments that happened during Raw as well. They were extremely gracious in their retweets and thanking us. So anytime WWE or NXT comes to North Carolina, we'll be sure to provide those guys with the best reports as we can. So huge thanks again to those guys. They also have a really good wrestling podcast on Monday nights and Wednesday nights, so check them out at WrestlingInc.com as well. So Cody, we'll start off here with a few pop tops just to get us rolling before we get into last night. I don't have anything to pop today. Again, Wrestling 101, check. Production 101, not so much. But we had the Thunder and Warriors last night. So while we were watching oily guys get slammed to a mat, there were sweaty guys on a basketball floor having a really competitive game, apparently. The Thunder defeated the Warriors last night in a comeback victory, 108-102. What did you think about the headlines you saw this morning?
Well, I mean, overall, it was a pretty even game once the stats finally got down to it. I mean, you have three of the top, 8 players in the NBA in one game, in Durant, Westbrook, and Curry. And Curry still looks to be favoring a little bit in terms of the injury he was coming off of. Durant is just a steady player, and Russell Westbrook is a man-possessed, running 1,000 miles an hour all day, every day. I mean, of course, a little controversy at the end. I mean, it's crazy to think that we have a team that won 55 games through the season come in and show up and beat the Warriors at home with a 73-win season. But again, it is a 7-game series, and I'm starting to think that this one may go all the way, Chris. I mean, it's going to be entertaining to watch. I hate West Coast times because I'll never see anything but highlights. But, yeah, entertaining to start off with. We'll see how the Cavs and Raptors do tonight to follow up with their game one. Don't think it'll be nearly as entertaining as what we saw last night.
Yeah, let's be honest there. The Cavs and the Raptors, really nobody's going to pay attention to that until whoever wins that series gets to the finals, most likely the Cavs. The playoffs right now are 99.9% Western Conference Finals, and for good reason for the most part. But really, like you said, you have Westbrook who's playing like a man on a mission. From what I saw, what I heard in the highlights today, Golden State got a little bit out of character toward the later parts of the game. A little too much ISO play is going on. Not a whole lot of ball movement, which they're known for, and to get their big shooters the open shots. So, we'll see, how that turns out. I'm in agreement with you. I'm thinking that 6 or 7 games here, I don't think it's going to be a sled one way or the other. But also you have to look at the Thunder here. have won games now in Oakland, and they won 2 games in San Antonio, where only I think one team had beaten San Antonio at home all year. So, Thunder have something going for them right now. They're a better version of what they've been all year right now. So we'll see how that series goes. Moving along to baseball, the Atlanta Braves, our Atlanta Braves. If we can claim fame to them at any point right now, they have fired their manager, Freddie Gonzalez. And I'll give my little hot take in a second, but what was your feelings on this one, Cody?
I honestly think it's more of a change of scenery move for the Bravos. I mean, you can't do anything as a coach when you're not given anything to do with. And I honestly believe that was the situation for Freddie in this case. When you trade away every big name except for 1 or 2, and your farm system, you're keeping everybody down and not giving them a chance to move up and keep bringing these mediocre players up to where they cannot contend with other teams. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. I will say, when you start off 9-28, like they have, it's only a matter of time before he's out. Now, I don't believe who they're bringing in is going to change anything. I believe we're just going to ride out the season and see what happens. But it's not looking good for the Bravos, especially going into a brand new stadium next year, where the fans are not going to have anything to look forward to except for the new stadium.
Yeah, most definitely agree with you there. They're actually bringing in their AAA manager, Brian Snitker. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he's going to finish out the season with the big boys in the major leagues, if you want to call this team a major league team. Just running down the Braves lineup right now, I recognize a total of 4 people in their current starting lineup, and that's just from baseball in general. I've never heard of the other 5, just maybe in passing glance, but you have Nick Markakis, MLB veteran, A.J. Przinsky, MLB veteran, Kelly Johnson, journeyman who's been with the Braves, I think, 3 separate times. Mm-hmm. And let's see. And then you got, the staple of the Braves franchise right now that I actually feel really bad for, and that's the big first baseman, Freddie Freeman. He's having an okay season, but they're 9-28. Their farm system is supposedly the best in the league. They're bringing their AAA coach up. They probably have half of their AAA lineup on the roster right now. So, obviously, we are in a transition phase. But, in my opinion, this is not Freddie's fault. If he wanted to be let go and it was kind of mutual because he knew he couldn't do anything with them, to me, that's okay. But if they're blaming 80% of this on Freddie, then I am in utter shock and stupidity at that part of their decision making. Me and you could probably apply for this job and win just about as many games with these players as Freddie Gonzalez did with this current roster.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame, especially for such a historic franchise, especially around that community, and especially how they built so much around Turner Field, turning it from an Olympic stadium to their home stadium. And you're right. I hate it for Freddie of all people, but you got to think your staples that you listed off at the beginning, Markakis, Przinsky, and even Johnson now, even though he's not as old as those 2 guys. It does not bode well. Yes, those guys are good locker room guys, but there's only so much you can continue to put out on the field and make it through. And I think me and you both agree with that as well. But it's going to be a rough season. They will be lucky to win, I don't know, 25 games. They're easily losing 110 games this year. And that's just being generous.
Yeah, and as you said, it's going to be tough to sell out season tickets to your brand new multi-million-dollar stadium in, I guess, outskirts of Atlanta next year was SunTrust or Sun Life Stadium or something along those lines.
SunTrust, you had it right.
Okay, SunTrust Stadium coming up next year. It's going to be tough to sell out season tickets there, and obviously, if you're going to spend the taxpayers' money, you kind of need to sell those tickets. So hard times, as Dusty Rhodes would have said back in the day, for the Atlanta Braves right now. But we move along into a little basketball once again. The NBA Draft Lottery is tonight. The top 3 teams slated to get those top picks percentage-wise is the Celtics at number 3, the Lakers at number 2, and the 76ers at the top spot. With their percentage, it sounds like the late 1980s all-star team, except now it's completely inverted, and they're at the bottom of the totem pole.
Yeah, the 76ers, they have a 25% shot of getting the number 1 pick, and then the Lakers, 19%, closer to 20%. So they're pretty much neck and neck, having the most balls in the lottery there. But the big story is more than likely one of those 2 teams are going to get the first pick. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people who have chances to get the first pick, and we can always be surprised. That little gumball machine thing that they use in the Powerball, it can trick you up sometimes. But the big question is, and it's not, people are making it sound like it's not a big question, but it's who is going to go number 1? Ben Simmons, or the gentleman from Duke whose name just eluded me for some reason, Brandon Ingram.
Yeah, there you go, Brandon Ingram.
Yeah, so it's basically a coin flip, to where we got to see how good Ingram was. We never got to see how good Ben Simmons was. So, Chris, if you had to pick one, who are you going with?
If I had to go on competition level, we have to agree here that the ACC is a much, much better basketball conference than the SEC. So if you want to go on ability level, I think maybe Ben Simmons has a slightly better upside. But when you want to go with proof in the pudding and what was put on the court this year against better competition, I think Brandon Ingram's going to be your longer tenured player, and dare I say it, might actually have a little bit of a better head on his shoulders than Ben Simmons, because of all the late season academic issues that Ben Simmons has as well. His mind wasn't on LSU; it was on the NBA from day one. Excuse me, sinus infection ensues. So a little stuffy here today, guys. I apologize for that, but yeah, if I had to go just in a long-term pick, I would actually go Brandon Ingram.
Yeah, same here. It's just don't get me wrong, Ben Simmons, he has the physique. He looks like a basketball player who's ready for the next level, to where Ingram does not. I think just in terms of a physique and the eye test, just looking at them standing still. Now, looking at them on the court, now, don't get me wrong, Ben Simmons can pass the ball. He did his best to make his LSU teammates better. But when you have sorry teammates at a Division I college level, you're not going to look good. And that's exactly what happened to him. Now, he may be tearing it up in terms of pro days and stuff like that, but you're right, just from people who watched the games in terms of, he got great TV time because of his name and what he came out of high school doing. But it's just, let's just hope that neither one of them go to the Sixers. I would hate the Sixers to get the number 1 pick and to waste talent again like they have for the past 3 or 4 years. So, that's my only hope, is no one ends up in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I hope that franchise gets itself together, because Lord knows it is a train wreck right now. A couple of local notes from the NBA draft. Justin Jackson from the North Carolina Tar Heels has repealed his name from the NBA draft. He will be returning to school next year, and I believe Kennedy Meeks will be returning as well. So Tar Heels coming back full force next year. Let's go. So we'll see how that happens.
Yeah, and real quick, just to keep it in the North Carolina flavor, in terms of the NBA Combine, Cat Barber from NC State shined. He had a great scrimmage game that they held at the Combine. He's having a great NBA Combine time. So look for Cat Barber to be one of your top draft picks, hopefully coming up in the NBA draft representing in North Carolina school.
Absolutely. He, along with Marcus Page, actually had a really good combine as well. Marcus Page, I think, had like 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists with like 4 of 6 from 3 in one of his scrimmage. So, that's NBA level 3-point line. So, good for those guys. Both kind of undersized when it comes to an NBA point guard or even two-guard standpoint. But possible that they get on a roster and are good team players for several years to come. So best of luck to the Carolina boys as they move into the NBA draft. Moving back into the baseball, or should I say UFC. UFC 198 was this past weekend, but I'll be honest with you, I really didn't pay attention. But the best fight I saw all week was between Jose Bautista and Rognan Odor. I'll tell you what. That was one haymaker that Odor threw on the Bautista. And give Bautista credit, by golly. He didn't go down. The only thing that went down was his glasses.
Yeah, we had jewelry trying to fly off the neck. We had sunglasses flying at least 15,000 feet into center field. It was a haymaker. Now, this was a lot of tension that built up from the playoffs last year. And this is actually the last time that they were going to play the Texans this year.
Oh yeah, it was now or never. It was now or never.
Yeah. So this was they waited for Jose. The story is they waited for Jose Bautista's last at bat. They beamed him because they don't like him because of the bat flip, and then he went in a little hard. Now he slid late, but he didn't. He barely made contact with Odor, at least from my standpoint. But the littlest clip was going to set somebody off, and a shove led to a huge haymaker and a 8-game suspension for Odor, and then breaking right before this podcast, 1-game suspension for Jose Bautista. Joe Torre has not handed down any other suspensions in terms of the brawl as of yet. I know those were the focus of everything, but more suspensions possibly could come for both the Blue Jays, and the Rangers.
Yeah, with Bautista only getting 1 game, you would think probably not a whole lot more suspensions are going to be handed out, and probably more so fines in this instance. Because the benches did clear, everybody was pretty engaged there. But all in all, except for those 2 guys, somewhat harmless, I would say. Just more or less, hey, are you talking to me? And blah 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 blah. Nothing like Brad Ausmus did to the umpire where the microphone was not shut off the other day, and the little kids got to hear him just lay the smackdown on an umpire. Is he the Padres manager now? The Brad Ausmus?
Tigers.
Tigers. Okay. So a huge tirade that he went on the other day. So that was kind of fun. So check that out if you can find the unedited audio. Stuff we cannot say on this podcast, or at least choose not to anyway. So.
Absolutely. Definitely worth a watch. And his suspension was only 1 game as well. And then real quick for Odor, I believe it is I don't know if it came out final yet, but his fine is going to be $5,000 along with the 8-game suspension.
5,000?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cheap. He got off pretty good.
Yeah, I'm about to say it's. I wish I could get just fined $5,000 for punching somebody in the face. Odor is expected to pay just a fine of $5,000. If we need to name the source just for purposes, Jeff Passan from Yahoo, but that's probably about right. It all depends on if that suspension is with or without pay, and that is something I do not know.
Yeah, if it's without game checks there, that makes a little bit of a difference. But all in all, big fight there. Fun television. It got plenty of coverage, and that right was pretty hellacious. I will give him that.
Yeah, so Dana White, sign him up, bruh.
I know, because that's probably the hardest hit he's ever had in his major league career.
Absolutely.
Heyo. I've got to give Cody credit for that joke. I just stole it from him. But nonetheless, that's joke number 2. We will move on to the task at hand and recapping our experience last night in the Greensboro Coliseum. The jam-packed Greensboro Coliseum, mind you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
I've been to several live events in Greensboro Coliseum. I've been to Raws in the Greensboro Coliseum. And this was by far the biggest crowd I have seen for a wrestling show. And this is, you have to keep in mind here, no John Cena, no Randy Orton, no Seth Rollins. You know, a lot of your bigger stars are still on the shelf due to injuries, due to be back within the next month or so. But those guys aren't there. You had guys like Roman Reigns, AJ Styles. Those guys are in the world title picture right now. Sami Zayn, Cesaro, Miz, Kevin Owens in your Intercontinental title picture. The New Day, who is really over in the tag scene. You know, folks like that are getting butts in seats. Yep. And if I had to guess, the Coliseum holds about, 18,000? They probably had 5 of it blocked off for staging, and then another 2 or 3 blocked off for the upper level on the non-camera side. But I still would venture to say 10 to 12,000 people there last night.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot more packed than I thought it would be, and it was almost packed. There was still some empty seats, even when the Superstar recording started. I mean, I think me and you were really impressed because we went into this show worried about, okay, how are the fans going to show up and react to everything that's going on to make them want to come back to Greensboro again.
Right.
That was definitely our concern moving in. But to start off with, at least live, which is what we'll allude to a little later, but at least live, the feeling was there.
Yeah, apparently it didn't come off quite as well on television except for the really, really loud portions. And obviously WWE has control of that with their production on how well they mic the crowd, and they sort of control the reactions even with a live crowd. They'll mute booing Roman Reigns in a hurry. But, you know, you have to look at it this way. This is the first Raw that Greensboro has gotten in over 3 years. They've had a couple of live events in between that, which only about 4,000 to 6,000 people may have shown up to. But I think they took a chance on one of their, what I would call, B towns on hosting a Monday Night Raw. Because, you know, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, Greensboro, Charlotte, the Coliseum, the big Coliseums in those cities would host huge wrestling events for NWA, WCW, all those larger, older promotions, and be huge. I mean, they would sell it out every time. Now, Greensboro is kind of declared a quote-unquote casual city with a lot of young fans, a lot of casual fans, which I can't really disagree with that. There's very few of us in that crowd. There were several NXT-type fans there, which was cool. But, you know, Greensboro is still somewhat of a casual city. So they took a little bit of a chance, and I think we passed the test. I hope they bring us back another live event, maybe even a SmackDown here in the near future.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially, like I said, at least live, the vibe was there. And I also agree is that you have to think, at least our demographic, I know, at least looking at the town, Greensboro, yes, lots of young folks who they're not going to be into it like we are, but your older folks who live on the outskirts now, who can still get to the arena, they're not into the talking and the appealing to the more younger crowd, i.e. children. So they're not going to show up and want to watch as much. And that I think that hurts, at least from our standpoint, in terms of getting any shows on a regular basis.
Yeah. For the event itself, I mean, I know I had a good time. It may not have been my absolute favorite event that we've ever been to, but it was still, for the price that we paid, where we were sitting, it was a good seat. You still have to look at WWE being one of the better entertainment values still out there. So, I mean, overall, I had a good time. What's a couple of your highlights from the night, Cody?
Well, I guess one of my favorite bits in terms of a fun aspect, which I just said a lot of the people don't like, but just seeing the Golden Truth, that whole gimmick's hilarious. that's just a fun aspect for people who know Goldust because his character hasn't changed, who know R-Truth because he hasn't been in the game as long as Goldust, but he's been around long enough that people know his gimmick, and it was fun to watch them. But in terms of a match aspect, the one that got the most rave was, as you say, and you'll allude to this a little bit later, I believe, but the quote-unquote main event of the night, the Usos and the Club. I believe that was the loudest the crowd had been, lots of big moves, and it was that was a really fun match to watch, and it was really well put together by both the Club and the Usos.
I think Roman Reigns is actually calling him and the Usos now the Bloodline, which is actually a much better name than just the family, because you have the Wyatt family, and then if you remember several years ago, you had the Guerreros that were calling themselves La Familia. So you're just sort of rehashing a bunch of faction names there. So the Bloodline, that's a little better name for those guys. But agreed, that was a good match. Very well done on all parts. You could definitely tell, and this is a cool part of going to a live event, is you can tell when they're on commercial break. The action slows down. They get very much more crowd interactive, the performers do. And stuff that is fun for the house, but wouldn't translate over on TV as well. So, fun match between all four of those guys, obviously with AJ Styles and Roman Reigns getting involved in that. Now, this Sunday is Extreme Rules. You have, for the World Heavyweight Championship, AJ Styles versus Roman Reigns in an Extreme Rules match, hence the name of the pay-per-view. Who do you have going home with the title this weekend, Cody, after you see that AJ Styles got the upper hand on Raw?
Yeah, with the last bump of that whole segment where we had to stop
the parade of chairs.
Yeah, and the Styles clash on the chair. Everything's leaning towards Roman Reigns leaving with the belt, and letting AJ win it at a more bigger pay-per-view if he does get that shot. Not that Extreme Rules is not big, but we all know that there's bigger ones coming up. SummerSlam, I believe, is the next big one, if you had to ask me.
Yeah, Money in the Bank is usually pretty good. But then you have SummerSlam as your next quote-unquote major.
Yeah, which is what I'm looking at. If they you're killing me, bro.
I know, man. I'm killing myself, bro. Jeez.
But I will say, I think once some more of the bigger superstars start coming back, that's the only thing that would make me think is they would let AJ win, even though he did have the upper hand leaving Greensboro on Monday, is that to let him get his hands on the belt and build his name even more than it is with the WWE Universe before the big names start coming back and start running things again as they always do.
Right. Like I said, your bigger names like your Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, John Cena, all slated to be back within the next month or two for that SummerSlam season and the Money in the Bank season as well. So I honestly don't know if AJ's ever going to get to touch that title. I think he's a very good placeholder as a cult fan favorite like ourselves that are familiar with his work in TNA and a little bit over in New Japan. So that's something for us to cheer for. And you have Roman Reigns to go for, the younger demographic and the female demographic, because we were talking about this last night. If you're familiar with John Cena, his favorite live chant at shows is "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks." And there's always a very distinct vocal difference between those chants. It's always "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks."
Yeah. And
very similar last night, AJ Styles, Roman Reigns.
Yep.
I mean, very similar 50-50 polarizing reaction. Yep. And that's what they want. And so for me, this angle is actually kind of working. So kudos to both of those guys for altering their characters a little bit in the last month or so, and getting this world title feud actually in a pretty good spot. So I'm looking forward to the match on Sunday. Another match that we'll see on Sunday is the women's champion, Charlotte, versus Natalya of the Hart family. And they made this I guess if you want to go by time slot, the actual main event of Monday Night Raw. What did you think about the placement and the reaction for the Flares?
Well, in terms of the placement of the segment, at least for where they were at and the crowd environment there in the arena, like I said, not knowing how it came through live with some of the tweets we got, but it was definitely a great thing for us to see. Being our, Flair's a local hero, Charlotte from the Queen City. It was good to see on that aspect. But I believe you have a little stat in terms of ratings that prove that what we felt in our hearts to be a great thing, bringing those women out there and trying to give them that spotlight, especially in her hometown, might have worked against the WWE.
Yeah, a little bit. And I'll give the folks at Wrestling Inc. a little bit of credit here. I listened to their podcast this morning, and what they did is, production-wise, I think they played to the house instead of playing to the 4 million people at home.
Yes, so that's exactly what they did. There's no question about that.
And really, do you want to play to the 10,000 in the house or the 4 million at home? So the last 2 weeks, what they've really done is they've made their 10 o'clock segment their main event segment because the third hour's ratings have really went down. And the AJ Styles Roman Reigns segment was the 10 o'clock segment as well as the opening segment. So that's your main event tie-in for the night. This was just more or less of a placeholder. Now, granted, I was really happy to see the ladies get this spot because I think that's another progression into making women's wrestling a little more important. That beautiful title that they just bestowed upon the women. And really, Charlotte is beginning to look and sound like the part. She's still learning. Natalya is a seasoned veteran, extremely good at her craft. And I really think both girls held their own in their promos last night. And what was cool to me is, yes, you were in Flair country, so they wanted to start cheering, and then Charlotte turned on the crowd like nobody's business and turned heel just like that.
Yes,
that's what you're supposed to do as a heel,
they
done it. They done it very, very well.
That was a great move. There's no doubt in that. I mean, these two women together, so much history before them with the men that came before them, that this is just a huge clash, and at least something that the older folkies, like we've alluded to, are going to want to watch this match strictly for the name factor.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, they played her part perfect last night. That was one of the best things that could have happened, if you ask me, in terms of that segment.
Yeah, I think the segment overall went well. I think one of the funniest parts of the segment was Ric Flair was playing the role of embarrassing daddy at the ball game, which, we both have parents that are very strongly in line with our athletic careers, or lack thereof now. So he played the role of embarrassing parent, and Charlotte had to sort of keep him under control. So Rick was really good. He's been a great heel manager for Charlotte to get her a little bit more character development, even though this kind of lack of character development, she's turned into him. But overall, that's not a bad thing. But again, I really enjoyed this segment. What was sad is people were poo-pooing on it before it started, because we saw a few people heading toward the exits to beat traffic right before this segment went on the air. So kudos to the ladies for doing a nice job during that main event type segment. But like you said, the ratings, excuse me, just came in just a couple hours ago. The first hour was, I think, 3.3 something million viewers. The second hour was just about on par with that. But the third hour, which habitually drops for a 3-hour Raw, I think they should go back to 2-hour Raws, but that's a whole different podcast. That would make my life much easier. And the program much more digestible. But again, I'm not the one paying the advertising dollars, so if they want to make more money, more power to them. But the third hour dropped to a low of 2.894 million viewers. I think the third time it's dropped below 3 million in the 3 out of the past 6 weeks, which is not a great sign. But again, that shows you where they're putting their emphasis and where they're letting off the gas pedal. a little bit in regards to, what they're putting in that third hour. So I'm not going to blame that on the girls. I think people just weren't really expecting a whole lot. And I think if they would have tuned in and they were part of the live crowd, that they would have seen it was a little better than it actually was supposed to be. So another quick highlight and really disappointment for me was they advertised a Cesaro versus Sami Zayn match. I was so looking forward to this. Being an NXT fan, knowing the history between them and one of the best matches I've ever seen being their 2 out of 3 falls match in NXT, I was so ready for this. 30 seconds in, DQ. Ended up getting made into a tag match. Excuse me. And we thought it was going to be a recap of the SmackDown tag match with Cesaro and Zayn versus Owens and Miz, but Stephanie came out and won up Shane McMahon's decision, which sort of furthers that authority storyline a little bit. Not much, but a little one-upsmanship from Stephanie there, which made it into a Zayn and Owens versus Miz and Cesaro. And continuing with the theme of one-upsmanship, everybody was using the other person's moves. And whatever you can do, I can do better, which I thought was a fun concept for a match. What do you think about this one, Cody?
I actually, like you, was just extremely disappointed that the Sami Zayn-Cesaro match didn't happen. Those are just two amazing talents. Sami Zayn, I think for a lanky guy, can just do moves that you wouldn't expect. And Cesaro is just a freak of nature in terms of what he can do, in terms of what he can do with another body with the moves. It's fantastic. But in terms of how everyone interacted in the ring with Owens and Sami Zayn being on one team there, whoa, you owe me a drink, sir.
Yeah, I do. Jeez.
That's hilarious. But
I can't even answer, man. Jeez.
Do we get to hear who's going to leave
There
your
we
voicemail?
go. There we go. My apologies,
no.
ladies and gentlemen. The joys of live television, just like Monday Night Raw.
Yeah. But it was fun. And then the Cesaro and the Miz, I mean, the whole – how they were playing to the crowd and playing to each other, that was definitely a great match to start the day because that really – that gave people laughs. It gave people high-risk moves, and it was just really fun to watch. But, again, broke my heart not seeing Sami Zayn and Cesaro fight.
For sure, for sure. And if you go back and watch the clips on Hulu or YouTube, if you see this beautiful referee shirt, which you will, we have proof, our good friend Bryant Laughlin, my lovely brother-in-law, had it DVR'd last night and went through and took a few screen caps of us. So you'll see us in the live crowd. We had a really good time. Our lovely sidekicks joined us as well. Bryant's girlfriend, Cody's fiance, and my beautiful wife. We're all there by our side, made it a triple date, and I think we had a pretty good time.
Leslie said she was never there. She wasn't pictured.
And see, that's what confused me by that picture. I'm like, she's the tallest one in the whole group. How does she not get pictured?
Gosh, ridiculous.
I don't understand. But, with all that said, it was a good night overall. Thanks again to the folks over at Wrestling Inc. for having us help them with their Superstar spoilers. Off-camera notes, and so on. Any other notes that you've got from last night, Cody, besides not being out of traffic for 30 minutes after I was almost home?
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was nice. I was happy that we finally got the Stephanie chant last night when she slapped Flair. That was fun to me since she gets so much heat. And I think what helped that is, you're right, the whole Charlotte dissing her home crowd and turning her complete heel, at least from her, her home fans. That was fun to me, especially the whole gimmick that Stephanie and Shane have going on.
Yeah, I also saw Enzo Amore update on Fallout last night that he'll be back sometime, quote unquote, soon. That everybody needs to have eyes in the back of their heads. Big Cass said in an interview after his big squash win over Devon Dudley last night. I mean, The East River Crossing is a very impressive finishing maneuver, and I think he throws an all-time great big boot. Big Cass does. And, being about 6'10", they bill him at 7 foot tall, but being about 6'9", 6'10" also helps that fact. But Big Cass, if Enzo ever has any more, concussion trouble or anything along those lines, just let Enzo be Cass's manager, man. Those two are a very dynamic pairing, and with Cass being that big and that being that solid in the ring, there's stars aligning for that cat in the future, I believe.
Absolutely, I agree. He's definitely fun to watch, and he's definitely good. He passes the eye test when he's in the ring. He does not pass the ear test when he's on the mic. Not quite to me, but then again, that's where that Enzo would come in if he is not able to get back in the ring. That's where he would come in, being that mouth on the mic for him. Yeah,
granted, he doesn't know Enzo Amore, but I think he actually held his own. The material was okay, and what's cool about those guys is they actually write their own material. They don't have the WWE interns hand them jokes. Enzo was in an interview once saying that he had a whole notebook full of one-liners that he wants to bring out in his WWE career, no matter who is wrestling. So that's a fun little side note. But overall, again, had a great time. That just about does it for this evening's show. A little bit of a shorter show this evening, a little bit of a recap. Very busy week coming up for both Cody and I in terms of real-life stuff. So hopefully we'll see you sometime next week, maybe. But we'll keep our eyes on the NBA playoffs, NBA playoffs, MLB as the season rolls around, draft lottery tonight, and also SmackDown tapings are tonight from South Carolina, the worst Carolina. But thanks everybody for joining us. As always, you can follow us on Twitter, which is our main form of communication, at CT underscore. Not bad. CT underscore sports report. And also here on Google Hangouts and Google Plus at CT Sports Report. And also on Facebook at CT Sports Report. Again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming in to the CT Sports Report to spend a little time with us tonight. My name is Chris Callicutt.
And my name is Cody Teague. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful rest of the evening.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Have a good one.